Welcome everybody to the first ever SFI Not So Live, our first podcast from Saffron for Intermediaries. In this podcast we're going to be tackling some of the biggest stories affecting the mortgage and property industries alongside some special guests from across the industry. For viewers of our SFI Live webinars, you will know my name is Jay Evans, your host, and I'm joined by our stalwarts, Tony Hall and Holly Andrews. Welcome both of you. And our first special guest, should I say, no pressure, we have the brilliant, see what I did there, Michael from Brilliant Solutions. It took me hours to come up with that. Welcome, Michael. So before we crack on with the latest news in the industry and have a little bit of a debate and discussion, for those who don't know the panel, let's do some introductions. So Tony, over to you.
Hello everybody, my name's Tony Hall. I'm head of mortgage sales here at Saffron for Intermediaries. I've been with Saffron now just over a year, and but I've got over 30 years experience across a variety of lenders and a specialism within specialist lending.
Wonderful. And then over to Holly Andrews.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm the intermediary team leader at Saffron, and I've been with Saffron for just over 6 years and in the mortgage department for 5. So I look after our telephone-based BDM team and help desk.
Lovely. And last but not least, our very special guest, Michael. Do you want to do a quick introduction of who you are?
Yeah, my name's Michael Craig. I'm the sales director here at Brilliant Solutions. I've not been in the industry as long as Tony because I'm not as old as him, but I've been in the industry, back in the industry since about 2014, working with Brilliant, and my role is just to get the word out of what we can do and how we can support.
Brilliant stuff. Okay, and as I said, I'm your host, Jay. Anyone who's watched SFI Live will know me, Tony and Holly. So let's go straight on to it. Let's have a look at what's caught our attention this week in the news. So first one I'm going to go to, let's have a bit of a discussion on this, is the story that was released yesterday morning from BBC News about a couple that were refused a mortgage because they were self-employed and they'd applied for the self-employed grant. Now, the story in itself is, expected. There are restrictions to who lenders can lend to, but I think the crux of what went on inside was this overarching feeling that all lenders are immediately discriminating against those who have had the grant and those who have been on furlough. Now, that I believe that's not the truth. I don't work in the industry, so I'm throwing it out to you guys. What's your thoughts on this story? I mean, it was all over the lunchtime news, 6 o'clock news yesterday, with this case study couple and various other people. I mean, is this endemic to the bigger banks and bigger societies? Is it across the board? Are there things people can do? There are going to be those that are concerned and worried out there who are self-employed and who have taken furlough. Is it the end of the road for them for a few years?
Look, I don't think so. Reading the article, you can see, I can understand why larger banks that don't necessarily want to spend the time really, going through self-employed and looking at ways to help. I can understand why it could be easier for them in their process to say that's just not for us right now. Okay, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot of lenders out there that can help. For me, this is about common sense. This is about if you've got, and this is, I think, common sense and time, and this is where larger lenders who have more volume and therefore don't necessarily have the time to spend on each individual application will tend to shy away from these. But in these scenarios of the grants, a lot of lenders, ourselves included, are taking a common sense view. We've never altered our stance during the whole pandemic. It's always been about, we'll take what's in front of us and we'll look at it and we'll apply common sense. So in this scenario, if you've got 3 months bank statements of somebody now showing after the grant or after they've got back into the office that actually the business is performing at the level it was before, then actually for us, that's the kind of common sense view we'll take. All right. It doesn't matter if you had a grant or not. Everybody was offered a grant. You haven't got to pay it back. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad risk. It just means that you took the support that was available to you, and provided that was for the right reasons and you're trading appropriately, there are a number of lenders who are happy to look beyond that.
Michael, you know you're about to talk. I was going to ask you the same question. You've worked with multiple lenders, so what's your opinion on that?
From my opinion, I think if we look at when the government come out and announced the grants, and one of the biggest bailouts in Europe, I think we need to remember that as well. The government have come back and done. I don't think it was very well publicised what the impact will be on down the road, and I think we have to look at that as an industry and say we've got X amount of millions of people that currently own homes in the UK, with I think the second biggest country in Europe again that has this appetite to buy a house. I don't think it was very well done by the government in aspect of what's going to be happening. I don't know whether the government even spoke to the top. So we always talk about the top 6 banks. Whether the government had conversations with the top 6 banks about what the implications going down the road will be. I don't think you should penalise. I don't think it's discrimination. We use that word a lot across society. I don't think it is discrimination to people on furlough. I think it generally is lending policy. And what does that lending policy look like? And what is the appetite to lend to these individuals? And in this instance, well, no, we don't talk about individual cases, but this is the prime client through furlough. They paid debt off. They're not taking the new debt off. They've got the credit rating up to where it needs to be. They've managed to save money because they haven't had to travel into work, and may it well be. But I think there is a lot of people out there that have maybe taken advantage of these grants and government support when not the furlough. Furlough's different. The self-employed grants when maybe wasn't necessarily needed. So short answer is I don't think there's discrimination. I think lenders do need to look at it and get an understanding of what this looks like, and I think they need to be supported by the government. Because
it's individual cases, isn't it? Because the government as a whole are looking at society. It's down to the lenders to look at the individual, isn't it? And I think we need to make sure that that's portrayed across the industry. And I think the one thing with this article that really was a bit confusing for me, and your opinions are welcome on this, it said that the furlough and self-employed grants wouldn't affect your credit rating. Well, that's true, but it's not your credit rating that a lender will look at, is it? It's your affordability and the way you're living in your future. I think, Holly, you and I have talked about this with Tony on SFI Live a fair amount. In it's Tony mentioned common sense lending, but how have you gone about trying to get these applications through? Whether it's self-employed, whether it's a contractor, whether it's somebody who's been on furlough.
I think especially for the furlough, the one thing that we did look at for affordability wise is we did affordability calculations. We still do for 2 different. So we do it whilst they're currently on furlough. So what the applicants are currently on, if they're on their 80% or if they're on flexi furlough. And then we'll also look at their affordability once they've returned to work. So then we're really making a sensible decision. Is it going to cause them signs of financial pressure when they first take out the mortgage if they're still on furlough? If it does, then we're not likely to lend. We're probably going to want them to be back at work. However, if it is that they are, it fits on their 80% and it fits on standard affordability, then it's something that we can consider. Especially at the time of recording, in 3 days' time, we're due to reopen the majority of the country and lift restrictions. So some of those ones that are still on furlough should technically be going back to work. The people that work in nightclubs, the people that work in certain areas of hospitality, theatre, areas like that, they're going to be going back to work soon. So we're going to see a return to work letter. We're going to see potentially a pay slip in the short term coming up. So yeah.
Just on that, you say like hospitality specifically massively hit, especially the nightclubs who've not been at work at all since last March. Surely they are going to be subjected to more rejection because we don't know how that industry is going to go. There's still some apprehension from the public as to the lifting of these restrictions. We don't know how the business is going to fare. So, to be fair to the workers, from a lender perspective, they're not going to be an ideal candidate for you, are they, Tony?
Certainly self-employed, the owners of nightclubs, I think, are going to have to demonstrate a period of trading beyond the opening date in order for us to get comfortable. Or for any lender to get comfortable, because there's going to be a nosedive, but unlike others where you can already see the recovery, it's just not there because they haven't been able to. So I think that's going to take longer. If you're an employee and you're being paid, we don't. But this is always one of the weird and wonderfuls of the lending industry. If you're PAYE, there's no question ever made around the employer you work for. It's just how much money do you earn and can I evidence it? So for someone in a nightclub, if they're starting work again and they're evidencing pay, then that's just a straightforward application. And that's the challenge, because if you're the owner, it's a different set of questions, which has always been an interesting one for me.
Let's just deal with the self-employed for just a moment, because some self-employed people, their industries were particularly badly hit, some weren't, some were, whatever. But there are some people that shifted. We've talked about this again before, where people have shifted what they do as a business to survive the pandemic and come out the other end. So they've shown ingenuity and the ability to continue to earn money. When you're looking at your application, Tony, you were saying earlier about taking a bit of time on an application. What do you mean by that? What sort of information can you gather to make sure that's successful?
Well, it's just taking time to just look beyond what your policy says and actually look at the case, and understand. So, if you've got most lenders self-employed, or we certainly do, we ask to see 3 months bank statements. So we'll look at that activity in those bank statements and see what it's telling us. What are the credits coming in? What impact is retrading having on them? And it's also having reliance and getting comfort and assurance from suitably qualified accountants, explaining this is what's happened to this business, this is where it's going, in their professional opinion. So it's just taking the time to do that. It's about wanting to say yes rather than saying, actually, in these scenarios, it's easy for us right now to say, sorry, this just isn't for us. Mm-hmm. Whereas we're looking at it to try and say yes as much as possible.
Michael, do you think self-employed people are just going to sit back now and just wait and let the rest of the pandemic ride out before they even attempt to apply for a mortgage?
I think you'll see some of them do so. I think this is where it's probably adamant to say where a mortgage broker really comes into their own, is getting to know their client and being able to talk to building societies, lenders, and actually get across what these people have done. Some people have been brilliant in what they've done to keep their businesses going and to diversify into maybe different sectors. We say a few key words. It was talk about furloughs, a word I'd never really heard of. I'd only ever seen face masks in China, and that was because of their pollution issues. But now all of a sudden these are things that are part of our daily life. Yes, the restrictions are ended on Friday with face masks being lifted. I personally will probably still wear one until I've got at least my second jab. I'm only one jab in. But I think, to answer your question, I think some will. I think that's a natural, and that's just conscious to understand the market and maybe see where their business is going. Because remember, as you come through this pandemic, some of these changes that these businesses have made will no longer be needed, because that service might no longer be needed as the pandemic ends. They've got to go back to their previous roles and make sure they generate their new businesses. What I'll also say is, never before has it been paramount that brokers have relationships with accountants. For exactly what Tony has said, the accountants are the ones that will explain where this business is going, what's going to happen in the future, where the turnover is looking, what the enhanced profits may be now that are coming out of this pandemic. And I just want to make one more comment. Obviously, Holly mentioned about the furlough side of it. What we've not spoken about, and I don't think we talk about enough in the industry at the moment, is a big topic is mortgage prisoners. If you're lending to someone that's currently on furlough with no return to letter document from their employer, you could in theory be making another X amount of mortgage business. When they get through that, who's to say they're going to get a job in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, however long they take that hopefully they will. But we've not seen the top or the tip of what's going to happen when furlough hits in September. And I think it's certain markets that we know will be hit, and hospitality clearly is that one. And secondly, we talk about nightclubs reopening. If I ran a nightclub, I'm not sure I'd go straight to full staff straight away, because I don't know how many people are going to walk through my door. We're talking about COVID passports. Some nightclubs might not be interested in a COVID passport, which means you can't open from the sounds of what's happening. So although the lifting is happening on Friday, you're not going to see 100% of employees go back to this job. And what you'll see is owners do more hands-on. Because if I'm running a nightclub, I'm probably getting behind a bar myself just to see what it looks like.
As an ex-nightclub owner, I can 100% say I would definitely have to do that. And I think that's fair to say, though. One thing you mentioned there, Michael, that's really poignant point here is that the restrictions and the requirements and the suggestions and the from the government are a bit vague. So a lot of these people are going back and kind of doing what they think is right, because it's just such a ropey area for everyone. I think but let's not delve into what the government are doing. Let's go back. Holly, I want to ask you a quick question, or I'll ask you for a quick summary. For the brokers and intermediaries that are listening to this, if you had to give them some top advice for those that are self-employed and furloughed and they're a little bit concerned about, what do they need to be asking their clients before they come to you?
So I think starting with the self-employed is, first question we always ask as a BDM team is, how has the applicant been affected by the pandemic? So have they returned to work on trading? Did they diversify? So were they a restaurant that's diversified to takeaway? Just how have they been trading through? Did they take the bounce back loans? Did they take the grants? And just get a better picture. So the more information that can be provided up front, the better we are going to be able to help make a decision, and help, if we need to take it to underwriters, to get that support from them to say this is what they're doing. If it's somebody that has been, you know, for example, like a hairdresser, now we know that once since they've been back to work, they've probably doubled what they've been earning, because everybody wants to get their hair cut and coloured post-pandemic. So it's just getting to know the applicant, and we get into the bottom of it. So and for furlough applicants, we'll be looking at what their current furlough income is. I generalised the cut and colour for every attendee this afternoon on the podcast, but yeah.
For those of you that can't see the reaction here, I'll probably put that on the blooper reel. Okay, thanks, Holly. Okay, moving on to our second topic while Tony just redoes his hair, or lack of. We're up to
I just
the
stuck it
ONS.
back on, yeah, for the
You just
viewers.
stuck it back on.
I just stuck it back on, yeah.
He just reached to the drawer and pulled it out. So on to our next story, which is from the
Totally
ONS. The ONS and the mortgage introducer, with the house prices are up 10% annually. We seem to be hearing this story month on month as a new report comes out and the prices have gone up, and we knew this was happening. But what are the consequences of these rising prices for everybody, not just for first-time buyers, for anyone looking to move? Obviously, that's an obvious question, but what's the long-term impact? We've got a new visitor. Tony, do you want to take on this one to start with, or Michael?
I think we know why the demand's there. I think that's an obvious. Stamp duty's helped with that. We've got demand for more space. I live in a modest 3-bed terrace with my wife and 3 children. This house was plenty big enough for us. 2 big front and back gardens, fine. Come through COVID, come through lockdown, I clearly need a bigger house, because you spend so much more time with your family, in your living room, in your kitchen. So demand's always going to go for more space. So people are looking to buy the bigger house. Low interest rates always help demand for house prices. The second the interest rates drop, people then want to move and take advantage of the interest rates, take advantage of the stamp duty, and we use the word all the time, supply and demand. We are being told a housing shortage coming up. I'm seeing, where I live in Peterborough, more plots of land being brought up that were maybe left for green spaces that are now being used to put houses on. More so flats. I never thought Peterborough would get like London, but a lot of new flats are being put up, a few more high rises in the city centre. Nice ones, obviously, with the complexes underneath. But let's be honest, I never thought I'd be sat, 18 months after the pandemic, when it first happened in March, telling you house prices have gone up by 10%, and we've all had record months. And I think anyone that sits there and tells me they thought that would happen, I'm going to question whether or not you're being very truthful to me, because in March, April, I wasn't saying we were concerned, we just didn't know what it looked like. Mm-hmm. And now here we are 18 months later, thank the fact that house prices are up 10% annually. So then you look at, is now the right time to sell rather than maybe buy? So I don't really know where it goes. I don't think there'll be this big cliff edge that everyone talks about. I think it will slowly decline and maybe level out. But answer is, it's just driven on demand. Supply and demand is why I think the house prices have gone up. If you can charge more, if you go to hospitality, holidays have spiked, staycations have spiked in price, because in theory you can, because there is a supply for that, a demand for it.
So with the tapering off of the STLT holiday then, it's already started and it's going to continue right up until September. What's going to be the likely immediate effect? To anyone? Tony?
Well, I think there's a definite contraction in demand at the moment because of this frenzy over I'm getting a cheap deal, which is the oxymoron in itself, because what you've saved in stamp duty, you've paid more in excessive house price. So actually no one's been a winner in this, really, in that net position. So I think there's slightly less demand. We're certainly seeing that. I think because of the rise in house prices, first time buyers are struggling to afford the mortgage, because loan to income caps. As the house prices rise, you struggle to achieve that. So I think there's definitely an element of that. And yeah, I'm just really interested to see what the next 3 months does, because I can see it, as Michael says, I think I can see it not falling off a cliff but levelling off, because it'll be more of a normalised market. This time of year, normally there's not a lot of market now because people have done their buying in April to move in now. But September is kind of the next wave once the kids are back at school. So it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next few months.
Can I just add?
Ollie, it's going to help the application process, though, isn't it? Just having a little bit of slowdown might actually do all of you guys a little bit of a benefit. And certainly the brokers listening are going to be thinking, finally, things will level out and get a bit back to normal. How bad has it been over the course of the last 6-8 months?
I think we've seen it over different things, really. So we've definitely seen on an application process of cases that we're in, we've actually seen people lose their property where they've potentially been gazumped or that it's just fallen through. And, we experienced high turnaround times. We had a good competitive product that came out for limited company buy-to-let, which then just added fuel to the fire. But, great news that we are back down at the moment. We're working at our dip turnaround times at 2 working days. You've got your document processing in 3 working days, and a fully packaged case going to offer with our underwriters is currently taking 14 working days to turn around. Whereas when we were sort of middle of the pandemic, you were looking at up to nearly 30 days to get from app to offer. So we really are seeing positive changes in the last few months. We were really busy towards the end of June. And it's just starting to normalise back down now over the last couple of weeks.
Has this been the same across the board, Michael? We speak from our experience, but from yours across all lenders, what's the sort of the pandemic period been like for applications?
Crazy is the honest answer, and I think that's the polite way of putting it. A lot of brokers I talk to have been extremely busy with first-time buyers. Some even refusing to take remortgage business on in the months of May and June just so they can concentrate on getting the purchases done and through the door. I think the biggest frustration the industry's had, and I spoke with Tony about this the other day, is service. It has spiked. It has become too difficult to get cases through the door, and I think where brokers get the most frustrated for, and the risk of talking on behalf of every broker in the UK, is that when it becomes out of their control. And it is out of their control when it sits in with a lender. And then and again, I've spoken to other lenders about this, it's just poor communication also frustrates. So short answer is, it's been crazy out there. It's been very busy. Everyone I've talked to is having a record. Best May, June they've ever had. And even now, Holly mentioned, and yourself mentioned, that it's slowing down. That's not what I'm seeing at the moment. People are now just really busy with the remortgage stuff. And I've spoken to a lot of lenders, and they're telling me that September, October, is on par to be the biggest remortgage months they've seen for a long, long time. What I will ask, if you don't mind me just mentioning, I'd be interested to understand across the market how many brokers have written mortgages on 5-year fixed, driven on one, affordability, but more on the hope that the house prices, they do dip, they're back up to where they were when the remortgage comes in place in 3 to 5 years. So I'd love to see a stat to see what has been lent against 5-year money going forward. But yes, it's been. Yeah, it would be. Just to understand whether or not brokers have foreseen maybe this dip and gone, you might want to wait 3 to 5 years to make sure the house is back to where it was be. And there was one winner in the market with the prices, Tony, and that was the people selling. They seem to have enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
They've got to, I tell you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, there's definitely winners, but it's a lot of people we've seen of selling and going into rented, so that they were ready to get that house and be a cash buyer, because there's been a lot of gazumping, as Holly was mentioning. We've seen that. I think the one thing about the frenzy and the pressure on service, it has forced lenders to consider what they do. And certainly we've done that. Actually, we were doing it anyway, but it has heightened that we've been really forensically looking at what our service is and how do we make it as frictionless as possible, because that's what matters. And communication is really important, but if everything just happens, you don't actually need to speak to somebody. So there's a mixture of both. It's the communication for when it doesn't happen and you need to talk, but otherwise just get on with it and make it happen. And that's certainly our mindset and mantra. And we're by no means there yet, but we've made some significant steps forward in the last 12 months to remove the friction from our process.
Okay, I think we'll leave that one there. So I'm going to jump into, well, actually no, we're not leaving it, to be fair. We're talking about first time buyers. We briefly touched into it just then. So let's revisit. But actually, before we do, Holly, sorry, I missed you out there. I really want to touch on you with the self-employed product we talked about earlier. Can you, towards the end of the podcast, let's chuck in some details on where we can find that information out, just so we didn't actually give any information where people can find out those products. So, back onto first-time buyers. This news article from Mortgage Introducer saying that first-time buyers are locked out of the south of England. Now, we've just mentioned that first-time buyers are taking a particular knock due to the stamp duty holiday, due to the increase in prices, and even talking down to like furlough and various other reasons. First-time buyers are not having a very pleasant time at the moment. Not to say that it's completely died, but obviously saying they're locked out of the south due to affordability is fine, and that story, let's not delve on that story, but let's look at first-time buyers as a whole. There has been a flurry of new first-time buyer products coming out across the market, hasn't it, Michael? I mean, I've seen over months of this year that you see more and more coming forward. Is that to now capitalise on the fact the SDLT holiday is ending and to keep buoyancy, or is that actually, oh God, we've not really looked after these people for this period of time?
Do you know what I think it is? I think it's to keep the market stimulated. I think we all need to understand that first-time buyers have to come on to our ladder in order for the next-time movers to move up to the middle home, and the middle homes to move on to the dream homes. So I think there has to be a stimulation. We tried it when we increased on second properties to try and force landlords to not go in, or smaller landlords to not keep going to buy property. It didn't really work then, to be honest. It continued to happen. So I think they're trying to stimulate the market. What I will say is we've seen a lot of is intergenerational families helping out. So you're looking at first-time buyers. I don't know where the bank of mum and dad, or what I'm now seeing is the bank of nan and granddad seem to have taken over bank of mum and dad in order to help children get on the property market. So what I will say, and hats off to a lot of lenders in the industry, is they've understood that. Many moons ago when I was underwriting, it was just mum and dad can lend you money. That is it. You couldn't have aunties and uncles, even if, and I remember I had a conversation with a lender years ago that the child had lived with auntie all of his life from the age of 3, still didn't matter, wasn't natural mum, couldn't have the money. So you're starting to see more lenders now looking at aunties, nans, granddads, cousins, a bit more intergenerational within families, and I think that is the way the first time market will continue to spike. And hats off to the government, they're bringing in new schemes. They are looking at certain aspects to ensure that first time buyers can get onto this market, onto this ladder. But you see it, we talk about it all the time, but it's been a problem for as long as I've been in the industry. That divide, house prices divide. So
and it's not going to change overnight, is it? But
not at all.
Holly, I'm going to bring you in here because actually this is what Michael just said is a very relevant point of something you've always done. And let's talk about the JBSP. Do you want to just explain to listeners what that is in case they've not come across it before, and how that relates to what Michael's just said?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, we do have a 95% product, and it's on our joint borrower sole proprietor. So that is available for first-time buyers that can't quite reach the loan size that they've applied for, and they need a supporter to go on the mortgage. So the supporter can be a close family member, so it can be parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and the term is actually not affected by the supporter. So as long as the supporter is no older than 70 at the time of application, the first-time buyer can apply up to a 40-year term for their mortgage. Because what we're looking at is in the next 5 to 10 years, as their salary increases, they can refinance and remove the supporter and just take the mortgage out on their own. And the only other stipulation is that the supporter then has is a homeowner occupier as well. So it was we've got our standard products at 90%, but with this joint borrower sole proprietor is really a good family assistance mortgage that we do have available, and it has proved popular for us as well.
Brilliant. So Tony, or so I would say the royal we, Saffron made the news last year when we chucked out some new first-time buyer products, and within 48 hours we had to withdraw again because of the popularity. Yeah. We haven't dipped back in yet that we know of. Is there something planned for the future, and what can first-time buyers look forward to from Saffron?
Yes, we've been watching the market, and I think, as Michael said, you can see the stimulation and all the new 95% products coming in to help. And first-time buyers remains a key target for the society, because it's what mutuality is all about. It's about enabling home ownership. So we've never been out of that 95% market because we've had the JBSP at 95%. But we do expect to come back into the more traditional 95% market very soon. So keep an eye out.
Great stuff. And Michael, I guess I'll be joining many other lenders because, as I was saying earlier on in this, with more and more coming out, are the offers, or are the products that you've seen released over the recent months, are they competitive with pre-pandemic products?
To a degree, yes. I think you're always going to see lenders start to tiptoe into this side of the market because no one really knows what it sits and looks like at the moment. It's the first time lenders will come back in. Look how long it took us to get back to 85 and 90. And you're always looking for one of the, and we keep using the word bigger banks, to make that decision to come in. Saffron came in, left after 48 hours, and we all understood why. You come in, you can't do the same volumes that maybe the banks can do. So I think short answer is no. They're not where they were, but I think they will get to that point.
And I also don't think as well, pre-pandemic, March 2020, we had there was 391 95% first-time buyer products out in the market. Middle of the pandemic, you went to 5 products on the market, and now returning, we're still not quite at that level, but each week you're starting to see more and more lenders join back into the 95% because they're following the ones that have felt more comfortable going forward. And there's a small bit of competitiveness coming back, I can see in the rate. So I
would definitely say that it's a good time during this recent cycle to be first time buyer, because there actually is a bit of a price war at the top end of the market, as lenders jostle for top spot. Fortunately we're not one of those lenders that worries too much about that, but it's a good time to be a first time buyer in terms of interest rate, because they're coming down, not going up.
You can see it happening because probably a month ago everything was rate increases. Every product transfer, everything we got through from our club to our package, it was rate increases, and what that was stemming the flow, was trying to get through to the end of June. Now everything we see is rate reductions, and now everyone's getting back into that. Right, I want to look at the pipeline. I want to make sure the pipeline where it needs to be. And Tony's right, and Holly's right. There is a price war at the top of our industry, which is only good for the consumer.
It's good to know. Okay, let's move on to another story from the Energy Saving Trust, a little bit older than the others, but it's talking about green mortgages and how they're creating a green mortgage revolution type thing. There's 2 different revolutions going on. We'll talk about another one in a minute. But let's talk about the green mortgage market for just a moment, because I've read endless amounts of articles, whether that's in the trade presses or whether it's in the national newspapers, about how green finance is going to be the way forward and how people are paying much more attention to it. And you've got Gen Z who are coming out as your first time buyers. These people are much more conscious about the environment. It's been drilled into their brains. They're looking for ways of doing this. And one of the things that this article goes on to is talking about improving the energy efficiency of your home. And now I'm bringing this up because we talked about this a fair bit with regards to your retrofit mortgage, Tony, in that's what it's designed for, isn't it? So rather than most green mortgages which focus on buying a home that has an energy efficiency that's already built in, we're able with this mortgage to look at the current existing stock and improving that for the future. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, Holly could test me here on my knowledge of the policy, but I'll have a stab first, and you can edit this bit out, no doubt. But yeah, so this is our retrofit mortgage. So we allow, I think you've got X amount of months to increase your energy rating by 1 degree. So from an E to, I think it's a minimum of a D. Is that right, Holly? No.
Testing his knowledge here. I'll throw him in.
I've got some
for the
homework
benefit
to
of
do,
the listeners, this is very early in the morning for Tony, so just bear with us. So let's move over to Holly and talk about the product.
Let's get Holly to talk about it correctly. Yeah.
So a retrofit mortgage is designed for, obviously, as Tony said correctly, is to improve the energy performance of that particular property. They have an applicant has 6 months from the time of completion to be able to do that, and it must be a minimum EPC rating of E and above as an improvement. And if they do improve it to that level, then we will give them a discount off the mortgage. We don't give them any additional funding to help them improve that. However, we'll help them purchase that property, and it's for them to then fund the improvements within there. So, yeah, that's retrofit. So Tony was close.
I knew that. I knew it all. I was just testing.
Putting you on the spot as always, Holly. So what does it mean though? I mean, we all know what an EPC rating is. You get the sticker on your fridge when you buy one. But but when it comes to a home, like what do you have to do? Do you have to do a lot to jump up? Say you're an F. What's it going to take? Is it a huge retrofit of the home, or is it just small improvements that will improve?
I mean, I believe it's small improvements, improving the insulation, maybe changing the windows so they're more efficient, or it could be introducing a new system that completely changes the structure of the house. It just depends on what they're looking to do. People have been, one of the things I've noticed is since working from home is your gas and electric bill has doubled because, both working from home and you're stuck with your computer on all day, and yeah. So there's different things, but there's different opportunities, and there's so much in the market now for green ideas that are coming out. When we look at our self-builds, which I know we're going to touch on later, is you look at the different types of methods that people use to build their home. They might do a heat source pump in the ground. It might be a certain type of insulation that they use. So yeah, there's all different things that they can do to improve their EPC.
Now, I'm not going to ask you a question on this because I only just know this because I'm a geek, but the government do give you some support for some of that as well. So you can get grants and loans from the government that will help you to do that, and including everything from, as Holly was saying, from solar panels on your roof to new forms of insulation. They even fund will cover things like new windows, new double glazed windows. Or in what I found quite interesting was in period properties where you can't change the windows, they were talking about internal linings of the windows to help that, and what you can do on a non-permanent basis. Just talking industry wide, Michael, how prominent are green energy mortgages, green mortgages, however you want to call it, green finance? How prominent is it, and how more popular is it now than it was 2 years ago, say?
It's definitely more popular now than it was 2 years ago. I wouldn't say it's as prominent as we'd like it to be. If you are energy and you are environmentally friendly, as I am and our family are, what I will say, and I talk about this all the time, is you mentioned about buyers now are more concerned about the environment. There's more going on. We see more. It's the millennials that are coming through. We're in 2021 now, so the first year millennials are now buying houses or have the ability to buy houses as first-time buyers. So lots of things are changing. Technology is changing. The environment's changing, and how we look after and support. So I don't think it's as prominent as it could be, but lenders out there like Saffron are trying to get it out there and get it amongst what it might support. Where I will say is a lot of this is driven around, maybe, and I might be wrong here, so you can edit this out if I'm wrong, supporting the affordability side of it. So lenders that will use ONS, it's clear if my house has got old windows, no loft installation, no wall cavity installation, no floor installation, I'm going to be paying more as an energy bill. But if you're on a rating of an A, that energy bill, and I've seen some staggering stats, that energy bill in this article alone can drop by 50 quid a month. So that will help your affordability going forward, and maybe stretch that income a little bit more. So I think there's loads of aspects to this green mortgages, but I don't think it's as prominent as we'd like it to be, which could be a good thing for Saffron, having that rate and that product out there.
I think from my perspective, much the same. I think a lot like any other green initiatives, they're going to take time to build. So they're not going to. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, would we launch ours 2020? It's going to take time to build on it. But do you think it is the future, Tony? Do you think people are going to be paying? Michael and I both discussed it, millennials and Gen Zs. Are the older generations going to start looking now and thinking, oh, actually, I need to, looking at what's happening in Germany at the moment, they're literally flooding in Germany, killing people. They're saying it's down to our environment as well. What do we do?
My generation, I'm 50. I know I don't look it, but it happens to us all.
Anyone on the video will notice that's not true.
You can edit that part out as well. I'm actually 60, but no, I was talking about it the other day, that green stuff with my wife, and we were on about, no, we feel really socially responsible to make sure that our boys, when they're our age in 30 years time, have got a wonderful planet to live on still, so it's not just about the millennials and the youngsters that have been brought up with this, and it's good for them because it is second nature. It is being a retuning and a reset for us older people, but we are as equally conscious. So I think it's only ever going to grow in momentum. Me and my wife would love to own electric cars because that's doing the right thing, but they haven't got the range that I need, and therefore right now it's still an impracticality for us. Even the garage I went to talk about me said I wouldn't bother yet. It's not worth it. It's just the infrastructure's not there to support a lifestyle that you need, etc., etc. So I think there's more to do. Going back to the point of housing, I think there's more that lenders can do, and I think lenders are very appreciative and willing to look at this. But I think it starts with your large house builders as well. In the SME sector, building one or two houses, you have to talk about its revolutionary new energy, because that's how you get your buyer. Mm-hmm. Because it's about smaller levels. But with the big builders, they do what they need to by law or statute, but it's not really driving the market forward, in my personal view. So I think it's got to start at all ends of the mortgage chain.
I think we also have some new weird and wonderful houses being built. These ones that turn up on site and are just dropped and built. They're really energy efficient. Try to get a lender to lend against them. It's hard work. That's not a plug either. That's just sheer luck.
Well, it just happens that's our next story we're going into. So well linked, Michael. You saved me a job, because we might as well just go straight into this now and talk about this self-build revolution that the Home Builder magazine is talking about, where this Kickstarter funding from the government has caused this influx of self-builders. Now we know these already exist, because we have products that we sell to them, and we also know there's some things that can't be lended against, as Michael just attested to. So Holly, what can you lend against, and what does a self-build product look like, and what does it mean for the buyer, and especially can we talk about first-time buyers too?
Yeah, so our self-build products are available to first-time buyers, and we can lend against the purchase price of the property, or the plot if they're doing a completely fresh build, and then we'll help in some cases up to 100% of the build costs, and then as long as the borrowing doesn't go against a certain percentage of the GDV, so the gross development value at the end. And with our self-build, we can consider a variety of modern methods of construction. So you can look at the passive house construction methods, which are within the eco and green space, and then you can look at modern steel frames. Anything that's got a BOPAS, BBA or BRE accreditation is something that Saffron can consider, and it just allows people, that first-time buyers especially, to maybe build a plot of or a property that they may have not been able to afford off the standard market. So it's cheaper for them to then build a bigger property which they could last and live longer in, effectively. So but it's self-build's open to everybody on our product.
Okay. How do self-build products compare across the market, Michael?
How does it phase across the market? It is more and more coming into its own.
Mm-hmm.
There are more and more lenders out there trying new and different things. What I will say is I see the housing market as a three-step process. First-time buyer, middle buyer, dream home. What I think you're going to see from self-build, as Holly said, is they're going to go straight from there to there. They're going to go straight to dream home, and they're not going to move on from that house. Because also what we've got to remember is self-build tends to be, as the name gives the clue, built around your specifications, what you want as an individual. Now, trying to resell that property might be a bit more difficult than selling your standard 4 or 5 bedroom mid-terrace detached house in an area where all the houses pretty much look the same. There's an area in Peterborough, just out the side of Peterborough, where it's got 10 houses and they are all completely different. Now, one's been on the market for nearly 2.5 years, and that's in an industry where the housing market has boomed all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So that's my concern about the self-build market in reference to the resellability of them. But it does bring out a lot of interest for lenders like Saffron to come out and go, look, we're going to look at these on an individual basis, a common sense point. What energy saving efficiencies have you put into that property? Because if I'm building a house, at paramount at the top of my head is space for the children, a bar at the end of the garden, and then also that's it, and also the energy side of it. Or what is this house going to do from an energy perspective while it's not built? Because this is going to be the cheapest time for me to get this sorted. So across the market, there is a lot out there, but are many people doing it right? I'm not quite sure.
But Tony, it is the future, isn't it? If in reality, if we look at it, it's a big part of the future, because we are very far behind the likes of Paul.
I was going to
say
it's the future for the UK. Okay, but it's not. This is, if you go back to Europe or even like Australia, Australians, there's very little SME house building or large house building. It's all individual plot. You just buy your piece of land, your 5-acre plot, and then you build your house. So we are way behind. So I think Europe, something like 85% of house building is custom build or self build. So it's very much the future here. It's just, and I think if you look at the land plot registries, there's up to £1 million, up to 1 million people at any one time wanting to find a plot to build their own home. So it is. But as Michael said, it's that dream home aspiration, and I think the government are trying to drive that forward with the help to build, which again, from a lender perspective, we're looking at that and trying to understand how that works, because it is a different set level of metrics to help to buy, because so we are looking at that because we're supportive of those initiatives. So to me, custom build it's little known about, but that's actually the route in. So the key difference there is custom build is primarily facilitated by an SME builder on your behalf, and it's just asking you how you'd like the house to look. I'll do it all for you. You just choose what your room size is and where you want the loo and where you want that. Right? It's not saying go and build it yourself, and that's the nervousness. I don't have the expertise. How do I get involved with this? So custom build is going to support that, because the developers are saying we'll do it for you. You just choose what it looks like inside.
Obviously, we're talking about.
I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, we're talking about the individuals now building a house. I'm just going to quickly slip into something else just before we end this particular podcast. But we're talking about self-builders and an ability to get on the market that way. But from a first-time buyer's perspective, we've also got, and you've touched on it twice, Tony, SME builders. In the, the brownfield land, the smaller brownfield land is not of interest to the big developers. They're sitting there screaming to be built on. The government want you to build on it. So surely this is a time for SME builders to go, okay, I'm going to put my finger up my bottom and I'm going to get on with it, and create affordable homes, small affordable homes that are great for first-time buyers. Great profit margins for them if they do it properly. So what's your advice on that? I know that you have a development finance sector of section, should I say, of Saffron. Can you explain what that means for any SME or to any brokers are out there that might deal with or work with? But likewise, there might be people listening who are from an SME builder. What are the opportunities for them?
Well, I think the government is very supportive. You've got the new First Home initiative's just been launched, which is around about enabling via local authorities first-time buyers to get up to a 50% reduction on the house price. So you're buying it with a 50% reduction on it, and obviously every development going forward has got to have 25% of its houses built in line with that scheme. Mm-hmm. So there's grants and there's money available for small builders, SME builders to do that. I'm not, the best thing I would say is look on our website, speak to Peter Owen and his team in development finance, and we'll talk you through the process. But at any one time there's around about 1,400 sites available in the UK for self or custom build. You've just got, I think if you look on just Google it and it'll be there. So there's lots of opportunity available.
Well, I think, going forward, we're in an unusual position. We're coming out the back end of the pandemic. We're looking at a more promising looking rest of summer and autumn. and let's hope the market stays with us. So we've got very limited time left, so very quickly, Michael, just thank you so much for joining us, by the way. Really appreciate it for our first ever podcast, and I hope you joined us for us at SFI Live at some point. But do you want to just give me your details? So where can they find out about Brilliant Solutions? So the listeners, where can they find you, Michael?
The easiest and the quickest way is to go to the website, and I say that because we spent a lot of money on it during the pandemic to get it up to where it is now, so please do click on it, otherwise I'm going to get shot. So the website is www.brilliantsolutions.co.uk. It's got all our telephone numbers on, our office number. It's one key number into the office. You can talk to anybody on the number, which is 01792 277 555. And if you want to get hold of me, one of the biggest things I say to brokers is I'm available to anybody. My mobile number is 07912 581 123. And just pick the phone up. Even if you just want to talk about the industry in general, I love doing things like this, like talking about the industry, having conversations, and we're here to support where we can.
Your help has been invaluable today. Thank you so much. Those details will be on every write-up, and it'll be on our website as well, so that you can get hold of Michael's details. Holly, over to you. How can I get hold of you and your amazing team? Oh, we lost Holly.
Oh.
Okay, we already cut that. Tony. So where can they find out more for Saffron Intermediaries? Shall I give out the website? It's saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. It's quite a long title, but saffronforintermediaries.co.uk. And Tony, we've done quite a dramatic update to the website, haven't we, over the course of the last, as Michael was just saying. And so during the pandemic, there's been quite an update to the SFI website, and as there will be. What's your advice? Sign up?
Yes, please do. I mean, I'll give you the phone number as well for the team, if that helps. Let's start with that first. So to get hold of the intermediary team, it's 01799 582 925, or you can email the team on bdm.inquiries@saffronbs.co.uk. We also have web chat, which we run on the site as well. And all the team are geared up for that as well. So there's however you want to get a hold of us, please do. Jay, remind me, I've forgotten the question that you asked me in the first place. So
that was it. You've covered what I was going to ask. And there they go. I'll sign up. So talk about signing up. So
yeah.
I'll go detail on this. So,
yeah. No, look, the best way for us to enable to make sure that we keep you up to date with all the changes is to sign up to use our online portal. That also enables you very quickly to submit your case when you're ready. So please do sign up. You can go onto the website, click on register, and it'll take you through that, and we'll confirm your registration within 48 hours as an absolute maximum, and then you're on our email list to get all the updates that we send through.
I think that's a cool thing, because there are some updates coming in the coming weeks. So get yourselves onto saffronforintermediaries.co.uk, sign up for the portal, top right corner of the website, get yourself signed up, get signed up to the email mailings, because there are some interesting pieces coming out over the coming weeks. That's what we're allowed to say at this moment, so Tony and I are pin-slipped. So a big thank you again, as always, to Tony and Holly, who join us every time, and a big thank you to Michael from Brilliant Solutions. This is the first of the SFI Not So Live with Tony, Holly and I, and a special guest every month. We'll announce the next one pretty soon. Don't forget to sign up and register for updates on the podcast on whatever channel you're using. We're available on Apple Podcasts, we're available on Spotify, and your favourite podcast platform. So just look for us on there, and we'll share on social media. So that's it from us this July. We'll be back again in August with both. So we're back with SFI Live and SFI Not So Live next month. So you've got a double whammy of us, where SFI Live will be focused very much on one topic. We will be talking the news on the podcast. So thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for downloading, and we look forward to bringing you the next instalment in a month's time. Take care. Bye now.